Right, so I've got a bone to pick with Forza Turn 10 and Playground games with a considerable size of the community as well. Feeling like there is not only stagnation but a clear degradation of the content and features being brought into the game. Yeah, there's new car models and new rendering, ray tracing, apparently new physics, but the way the force feedback menu is was being presented in Super GT's video, it doesn't give much hope for that actually being the case, aside from the relationship of the tires meeting the road with the fact of them saying that there are more points of contact instead of just the two or three previously. I think it was just single point of contact for each tire. I'm going to do a lot less talking and I'm just going to show. Alright, so I'm on Forza and I'm having to re-record my audio because the audio recording was trash. So I'm in normal steering. Uh, all my other assists were off, and I also show off the force feedback tuning menu. So if you go over to options, then you hit right bumper, and so you go into the wheel settings and then you hit X. It opens up the advanced setting menu, which surprisingly looks very much like the tuning menu on the new Motorsport.
But then you also have these advanced wheel settings, which I think are going to have to be changed to really.
So to begin with, there isn't any change with this. It's one to one, even the order that the settings are in. Uh, does not give a lot of confidence on whether or not there is fundamental changes to how physics are going to be calculated on the game aside from tire contact patches. So there is that. Um, Now I'm gonna show the difference between normal and sim steering and why I think Super GT pointedly avoided the issue knowing about those settings. Also,
Because it isn't what I normally use on Forza. And here are the assists I'm going to be using. So traction control and ABS are going to be off. I'm going to have steering set to normal for the time being, and then with manual shifting as well.
possibly being the reason why he has avoided using the wheel on Forza this entire time, while using a wheel on Gran Turismo and other sims like Assetto Corsa. So now I'm rolling with the normal steering setting. Um, you can see how sluggish the car is with responding to twitches and corrections. It gives me time to respond to them, so it's easier to drive, but it's delayed. So I'm not as quick to the correction because I'm getting the force or the feeling of it delayed. And I was demonstrating it here with a couple donuts and then the transition right here with keeping the wheel straight for such a long time before having to counter steer. Like if I had counter steered any sooner than that, it would have just straightened me out. But then the true test is going top speed and then yanking the wheel full left or right. Um, Very clearly, it's not going to full lock. It's giving me a little bit more steering input than I would get on controller, but it's not letting me go to full lock and dragging the tires. So I demonstrated it another time going the opposite direction. and then we test simulation steering. All right, so we're switching over to simulation steering to demonstrate the high-speed steering lock. Uh, but again, difficulty with Forza, the difference between normal steering and simulation steering is that there is zero dampening. The relationship between the wheel and the front wheels is 1-to-1, as you can see here. The tires actually heat up because we're scrubbing a lot more and it pushes me off the track. So we turn around and we do it again. This time I yanked it at a much slower speed than when I was doing the normal steering though. So the tires don't heat up as much by the time I straighten out. And in hindsight, what I should have done is gotten an outside view of these high-speed runs to fully demonstrate that the tires were going into full lock in sim steering and they were not going in full lock on normal steering, as they normally wouldn't. Finally, I'm going to demonstrate the steering dampening. Right now we're still in simulation steering, so you can see how responsive it is to my wheel inputs. And I go into assist and I turn it back down to normal. Look at how dampened the wheel is. I'm moving it left and right pretty violently, but the wheel doesn't budge, only for drastic changes, and if I give it a pause, it'll actually respond. But those large wiggles result just like a slight wiggle of the wheel. So we go back to sim steering to demonstrate again. So small wiggles, big wiggles, and you could see the relationship is 1-to-1. So in closing, the reason why sim steering is so difficult with a wheel, particularly on Forza, is because it's 1-to-1. And the simulation is not that great. There is literally like 1 degree of margin on tire slip in the game, so you have to be accurate to the degree on the amount of counter steering that you need to input if you end up in a over rotation situation. If you are under that degree of steering input, you are going to over rotate or continue to rotate. If you go over a single degree, 2 degrees of counter steer, you snap oversteer or you overcorrect into the other direction, which is not ideal and definitely not the dynamics of a car in real life, and definitely not how cars handle on any other simulation. Even games, Gran Turismo doesn't do that with steering wheels, and that's why I believe uh, Super GT is comfortable with his wheel there. Why I'm comfortable with my wheel on Assetto Corsa and ACC, but to this day I'm not fully comfortable with the wheel on Forza. I've gotten to the point where I can mitigate and drive around it, but that's not ideal. I would like to be proven wrong. I highly doubt Super GT or anybody else is with the ability to test sim steering right now with the game before it releases, since they still have a review copy of the game in its current state. If they were able to, or if they're even allowed, like that's another thing that Super GT had an issue with Gran Turismo when 7 came out, where he wasn't able to fully be truthful or have full disclosure on his thoughts and criticisms of the game because he was being held back by Polyphony Digital. A similar situation could be happening right here with Turn 10. So, if anybody, any of these people see it, if you are able to, if you are allowed to give your honest criticisms of sim steering with a wheel, whether it be direct drive or another Logitech G920 or G923, uh, please do so. That's it. Peace.